मानव धर्म स्वरूपने अवतार वरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः.
Yes, This song is called Be the Change, inspired by the words of Mahatma Gandhi, who lived for peace and not violence, and told us to be the change we wish to see in the world.
Welcome to the 100th Monkey Radio with Tom and Ramon. We are recording this on December 8th of 2014, and this year is rapidly coming to a close. And you know, I had a fantastic conversation this afternoon at lunchtime, Ramon, with some of the guys at work. I went out and sat with a bunch of guys that I don't normally sit with at lunchtime, and they were actually having a really surprising conversation. They were talking about the origin of Christmas, and of course, you know, me being who I am, I had to pipe in there and started talking about Mithras and Zeus and Saturnalia and all those different things, and I actually got some pretty interesting responses from these people and very open responses from them. So I was very heartened by that conversation, and it definitely lifted my spirits that I saw that, I mean, there was, probably 10 of us sitting around there. And, every single one of them were very open to the conversation. And there were a lot of heads nodding and going, yeah, I just knew there was something different, you know. So
yeah. Did they know the information, or you were like?
Well, there were a couple of them that had heard some of this stuff, but the most of the group was completely, didn't know anything about it. They were all, well, isn't that Jesus' birthday? So I did definitely at least spark some interest in some people today over that. So
yeah, it's funny. When I was, I think, in 3rd or 4th grade, we went to the, I'm forgetting my English. What's that called where you go see the stars, the museum?
Planetarium.
Thank you. We went to the planetarium, the famous one in New York, and they were showing the stars, and then they were saying, like, oh, Jesus' birthday is actually around April. And I was, taken back by that, and I never forgot that. All these years. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they can't even really confirm that either, though. So.
Yeah.
They're just doing that by hints, astrological hints within some of the old writings. So.
Yeah. So I want to address something, and it's not to bring people down or do a separation thing. I think the media does that pretty well, so I don't need to do. We talk a lot about different things, and when it comes to, what's happening in America with, especially the Eric Gardner one, which is a clear evidence of police abuse, there's so many people make it sound like, for example, Giuliani had said, he was the ex-mayor of New York City, had said, well, the police wouldn't have to be so tough if blacks weren't shooting each other. And it's, you take that and it's like, wait, that's just a human thing. That's one of our negative things as humans, is that we're always killing each other. It doesn't matter who you're killing, you're still killing. And, whites kill each other, Asians kill each other, everybody kills each other. And that's the problem there. And it's not a black and white issue as the media makes it sound. It's a human issue. There is, and it's not only in America, it's all over the world where you have these governments kind of pushing this police state kind of thing. And you see these kind of abuses everywhere. And it's not only happening to black people, because I've seen a few things where there was, I can't remember the girl's name, but I don't know the circumstance, but she was unarmed, and she was killed by a police officer and never charged with anything. So there lies the problem. And I think so many people, I don't agree with looting, obviously, but the protesting thing, and then you get some people who want to take advantage of that, and then that's everybody. So, and again, from other countries and even here, how sometimes they'll rile up the people. But what they never talked about is how some of these gangbangers, Bloods and Crips, were protecting people's businesses. So that doesn't get thrown out in the major media. And my whole point with this is that I think it was best said by this poet. I think his name is E.A. something. I forgot his name. Anyway, I'm trying to get him on the show. But he said, it's not a black and white issue. It's an insight issue. And of course I'm singing to the choir here. We need to do our own work so our own light can shine to push others. That doesn't mean that if you see an injustice, you don't speak out about it. But our own inner work is the most important thing, and that's what's going to resolve this issue. And we need to stop looking at each other as like, you're white, you're black, you're Hispanic, or Latino. As you're human, you're another soul like me. We come from the same place. So that's my speech. Tom?
Yeah, I agree. Well said, Ramon, and I agree with you 100%. This is an issue that's that's plagued us for quite a few years here across the planet, and I don't know that it's something that is. I don't know if it's something that's really resolvable within this realm. I mean, even within nature, and within nature, you see the same, similar.
But at the same time,
traits and attributes.
I've seen some crazy videos on YouTube of animals that should not be getting along, sleeping together. I saw a video of a mouse and a cat sleeping together.
Right.
A cat breastfeeding a baby squirrel. I mean, so even nature is starting to bring these things out, and I don't know if that's because of the human touch. No, some of them haven't been. Some of them some natural, or a female lion in the wild saving a baby baboon and protecting it from the others.
Right.
So nature is actually showing something different. It's not this dog-eat-dog world that it's installed into us. That's not the world we live in.
Well, and if you take a look at our society, and the things that have happened just look at the last 60 years here in the United States, and the changes that have happened along those paths. Now, I don't necessarily agree with the way that it's all been handled, and a lot of the terminology that surrounds it, because I think a lot of the terminology that surrounds it is a big part of the problem. But we've made progress. It's become something that is on the table for humanity to address. And I think what it's going to take is the more aware and more conscious, level-headed beings out there that start putting out the correct terminology, first of all, and making that something that is acceptable to the masses and comfortable for the masses to use, versus everything around it, all the terminologies around it to separate, to divide.
Yeah, and you see that even in the UFO world, because it shocked me. Some of the videos, some of the comments I hear from certain ufologists that were talking about that, and it's just like, wait, you're willing to talk about extraterrestrials and you want to be extraterrestrials, yet you're having an issue with your own species.
Right. Like, exactly.
So, I mean, I think a great example would be me and Tom. We get along great. We do this great show. We're both from different sides of the countries, different cultures, and yet, and we have people from different cultures coming onto the show in different countries and hopefully different planets.
Well, good thing we're both white, because I might be uncomfortable with you if you weren't.
Oh, yeah. I didn't tell you, Tom.
What?
See, I'm uncomfortable with Tom not because he's white. It's because he's Tom. It has nothing to do with his color. It's his bad English.
My bad English. All right.
I'm a professional.
Okay. Oh, that's right. You are officially an English teacher, aren't you?
Yes.
Oh. All right. Well, enough of this psychobabble here. Let's move on with the show. We've got a great show lined up for you guys tonight, and I am very excited to bring this lady back on. We've got Patti Conklin back with us. She is a medical intuitive, is a vibrational intuitive with exceedingly rare vision and the unique ability to pull disease out of the physical body. Patti's a lecturer and teacher of vibrational medicine, the method of improving health and wellness through the neutralization of negative vibrations in the cells of the body. She's an incredibly sensitive and perceptive individual and a highly sought-after international speaker who shares her exceptional abilities in her workshops and private practice. Both the Founders Award from the International Medical and Dental Hypnotherapy Association in 2007 and the President's Award in 2004 from the International Association of Counselors and Therapists are among her many honors, along with induction into the International Hypnosis Hall of Fame in 1996. Patti has been labeled by colleagues, physicians, and clients as one of the greatest medical intuitives of the 21st century. She's the author of The God Within, The Day God's Train Stopped, a tell-all book that recounts the experiences, visitations, and lessons Patti has been faced with in learning and accepting her mission in this life, to teach others to become insubstantial without transitioning. And Patti, welcome back to the 100th Monkey Radio.
Thank you so much, Tom and Ramon. I'm so happy to be back with you.
Oh,
yeah, this show came together like a synchronicity. The second show.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's we needed somebody, and Patti contacted us, right? Telepathically we called her.
We had it all set up. It was perfect.
Yeah, so
Yep.
Ramon and I were talking on Skype going, oh, wow, we need somebody for Monday, don't we? And as we were talking on Skype, the email comes through. And so there we go. It's like, all right, ding, 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 ding.
Yeah. Patti, let's start off with, what's going on with the country, because this, besides, the abuse with the police, you have that pipeline going through the Native American land, and forgive me, I forgot which tribe it was. And one quote I heard from one of the Native Americans was, we all know in this room this is wrong. None of you, something like, don't take it word for word, none of you are warrior enough to stand up to it, or something like that. One of the tribesmen had said.
Yeah.
So,
I think that when I look at the collective in terms of the violence that's been taking place here in the United States and certainly in other areas of the world, it just seems to be rippling out everywhere. But one of the things that's really coming to mind as I've watched the news of what's taking place in New York City and certainly in Cleveland, even when the little 12-year-old was killed the other day for having an air gun. What I really think back to is the fact that we've lost, and we talked about this before, we've lost the accountability and personal responsibility on an individual basis. And somehow, collectively, we've gotten into this place, especially in the United States, that we're going to have a savior come and take care of things, whether it's a Martin Luther King or, whoever it is. People have relied on leaders to straighten things up. And I think where the world is being pushed vibrationally is, how do we get everyone to take personal responsibility? We talk about racism, but we don't talk about reverse racism. We don't talk about the fact that we, assist one group, but we don't assist another group. And the groups that we're taking away from in order to assist another group is taking away from the original group. I mean, it just goes on and on. And I think that we've reached a place vibrationally within the soul level, on an earth-wide level, that the vibrations are heightening, and we're seeing so much more chaos because people are being forced into such painful situations in order for them to collectively start seeing their individual responsibility within every subset of what's taking place in life. It's like you can't bully a child and then turn around and bully, your neighbor or get insulted because you're being bullied. I mean, we're really reaching a point vibrationally, not just culturally or morally. We're reaching a place vibrationally where people have got to understand there's not going to be a person who's going to go out and clean up the mess anymore. When we look at civil rights and where we've come in 50 years, we really haven't come that far. And I think it's because people have relied on other people to do the work and then ride along. And I think across the world, we're seeing that no longer can take place, that people have to take personal responsibility for what's going on in their own personal life, and that will better the community around them, not attempting to take care of the community and not paying attention to what you're doing in your own life.
Mm. We're getting that collective proverbial 2x4 upside the head.
Absolutely. And I think that people are going to continue to be in tremendous amounts of pain until they get it. And there can be leaders and there can be people speaking about it and so forth. And yet we see the violence just nonstop, whether you look at, whether it's celebrities, whether it's sports players, when we're not holding everybody accountable to a standard, and across the board, then we're making outs. We're giving people outs to behave badly. And I think when everyone holds accountability, I read this story yesterday, and I can't remember the athlete's name, and I wish that I had it in front of me. But he was a football player, and he was like number 8th draft pick, back in, 10 years ago or so. And he was signed up, he was facing another contract for $34 million for a 5-year contract. And he turned it down. And he went and bought a farm in Franklin, North Carolina. He bought 1,000 acres so that he could start feeding that area of the country, and donated, like 10,000 pounds of potatoes and 100,000 pounds of corn and so on to all these shelters. I mean, wow. That's the kind of person that we need to be looking at, is going to say, hey, no, you know what? I could make another $34 million for the next 5 years, but I'm going to choose instead to go work and help sustain my community. That's awesome.
Wow, that really is.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's why I'm so happy about these kind of shows, not only ours, but all of them, because there's a lot of, where would we be without these kind of shows? Because you wouldn't hear any of these kind of things.
You really wouldn't. And these kind of shows are so important because people tune in, and I think the kind of speakers, and guests that you have on your shows and other shows, are really getting out there saying, hey, it's personal accountability time. And I'll tell you, here within my house, I'm pretty respected by my sons, but if they feel like I'm off track in a thought pattern, they have no problem calling me into play. I mean, they will sit me down and they will get in my face and they'll say, where is your mind taking you? Why are you thinking what you're thinking right now? And I'll justify myself, and they'll point things out to me, and we'll have a good back and forth until I finally understand from them how my words sounded. And at the end of the conversation, there's all love, hugs, even if we didn't come to total agreement, they will speak their mind. And I think we've lost a lot of that in this world.
Yes. Yeah. I've been learning quite a bit of that myself here recently. It takes courage, and it takes humility, and it takes sometimes eating a little serving of crow served up nice and fresh. We sometimes we do have to actually put our defenses down and put our weapons aside and have those conversations open and with God, without the knives and the swords and the bombs thrown back and forth, and talk things out from a very almost a third person perspective to be able to see things clearly.
As much as I teach this, when things were happening in Ferguson, I made a statement. Now, I grew up in upstate New York, and I grew up during the sit-ins in the 60s, and, the lockdowns at school and everything because of all of the protests on the Cornell campus. And so I come from a different perspective than my children do. But when Ferguson was happening, I made a statement at the dinner table, and my son, Dan, who has always been outspoken, but he very quietly laid his fork down and he looked me straight in the eye and he said, "You are better than that statement you just made. And I am profoundly disappointed in what you just said." And I just sat back and I went, wow. And I had to rethink how I said it and what did I really mean. But the fact that my 34-year-old son would call me so quietly and lovingly, but with no bones, tell you what, he meant every word he said. And to be able to do that with someone that you love and respect, because I know he respects me and admires me. But for him to call me on something that I said that really took me back to my childhood, I thought was amazing. And I'm like, wow, I wish everybody around the world would have dinner conversations like this.
Right.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing about one part of speaking your mind, and it's, are you speaking your mind or the collective social mind that you've been taught? You think you're speaking your mind, but are you speaking what the media taught you?
Exactly.
Or are you,
exactly.
Because I've seen people, like I was saying earlier in the show, I've seen people who are supposed to be very intuitive and enlightened. I'm not talking about the average person. Come out with some statements that is just like, wow, did you just really say that?
Yeah.
And so are you listening to the media, or are you speaking your free mind and saying, this is what I feel in my heart? Is this correct? Are you guys,
Well, what was interesting was what he actually was tapping into was all of the fear and pain that I experienced back from that time period. And I was making a statement, but it sounded as though to him that I was making it in the now. And I had to, when he called me on it, I had to stop and go, whoa, am I listening to the news accounts here? What was the prompt for the statement? And then I realized that it really went back into how I was raised. And, I remember in my little town, which was a poverty-stricken town, we had one African-American family. And Jackie was my best friend from kindergarten on. And by the time we got to the riots and the sit-ins, by the time we were in high school, it was virtually impossible for us to even speak within school. And I remember after we graduated, we ran into each other at the mall, and we both had babies. And, we're hugging and showing each other our babies. And her husband was absolutely incensed that she was having any contact with me as a white woman. And so what I realized, what was happening in Ferguson was really triggering me back to those times in upstate New York. And because he was so attuned, he was able to look at the statement that I was saying as the woman I am today, going, whoa, that doesn't sound like that should be coming out of your mouth. And I think that it's really important to sit back and saying, are you thinking this because this is what it is, or are you being fed what the media is telling you and what you should believe culturally. I think that those are in-depth conversations that everyone should be having with themselves.
Yeah, it's the same thing around the world, because here there's issues too in Japan, and I remember one time there was I was at a bar, and there was this girl, an American girl, and I can't remember what I said, but I knew it had nothing to do with color. And she said, "Why? Because I'm white?" And I said, "Listen, Miss Thing, there's only two colors here in Japan. There's Japanese and foreigner." And then her friend, who was like, "Yep, he's right about that." But anyway, it's like you see the same kind of thing here. Like, sometimes old men give me and my wife looks, and then other people would give us looks like, "Wow, that's great," So we get the both kinds of looks from people here, and the same thing in the States. It doesn't change from, it's just a worldwide planet issue. It's not an American issue.
And it's getting worse. It's getting worse. I mean, I think that, again, the vibrations are shifting because we're reaching a totality within the planet where people will be forced to take personal responsibility, whether that happens in a way where people are isolated because of, Earth shifting events, or whether it's because of massive destruction events. But I think people are going to start needing to think and work for themselves in terms of their survival and how they're interacting with people. And it's unfortunate that we're reaching a stage, I think, that we're actually going to see that within, the next few years. But I think from a vibrational standpoint of the planet's dying. And the planet's dying vibrationally because of the illnesses that we're carrying within ourselves in terms of how we think and how we're projecting ourselves. And I think all of it is cataclysmic in terms of the totality of the whole planet. I don't think this is just a tiny group of people. I think this is coming, worldwide.
Yeah. Bringing the extraterrestrial into the picture, how can we even accept someone who looks completely different? I mean, completely genetic makeup, and maybe things are not in the same place as ours.
We have a hard enough time accepting, the different shades of skin here, within our own race.
Sometimes it's not even that big of a difference. Sometimes we have a hard time accepting, whoa, you're from this area. Like in New York City, certain Irish bars, like if you're from Dublin, you don't go into the Belfast bar.
Right.
Like that kind of separation. You're not even in the same country and you guys are still playing that game. Like, that's how deeply ingrained. If you take color out of the picture, we'll find something else to be, to discriminate against.
Yeah.
It's like, no matter what you take out of the picture, we'll find something else. And
it's a mindset. I mean, it's a mindset of, I need to be different because I'm insecure and I need to show you that I'm better. And so we get into this insecurity thing, but, going back to the extraterrestrials, I think we're reaching a stage, sounding all dramatic tonight. And I don't mean that, folks, but I think that we're reaching a stage that I have felt all my life was coming, was that there's, source, however we want to take it, however we want to take the collective creator source universe, is there will be a time when souls go back to that collective. And I think that what happened back in time was that souls divided off from source and went into very different areas. And, we became human. And I think the extraterrestrials became, what we consider to be extraterrestrials. But in reality, in my mind, they were highly evolved beings technologically. We think we're technologically advanced. We're babies. We came here to deal with the emotional component of existence. And I think that in order to go back to source, both the technological and the emotional need to be in balance and integrated with each other. And I think the ETs are coming back in, and maybe some of this collective upheaval within mankind is happening because of it. But ETs have to learn how to be emotional, and we have to learn how to be more technological and linear. And I think that you're going to see the integration of that. And in order for that to happen, a lot of minds have got to be reprogrammed and rethought about what's really, how are we really getting there? Because if we think as a human race that we're evolved, we are sadly mistaken. We're not even close to it.
I don't know. This question came into my mind, and I almost feel like somebody out there just asked this question as you said that statement. So I don't know if I'm just hallucinating. How does that in that statement you just made? How does the spirituality come into play on that?
Well, I think the spirituality is the essence of source. The spirituality piece, and spirituality for me is, how do I be a spiritual, unconditional being living in this day-to-day life where I need to pay my mortgage and my electric bill and, pay for food and so on and so forth? I mean, how do I stay unconditional given the complexities of living everyday life? I'm not running off to a monastery up in the mountains in the Himalayas, whatever. I'm here, and I'm in the day-to-day essence of life. So how do I stay unconditional while I'm doing that? I think that that's the core of what we consider to be universal consciousness. So when I look at how do we go back to source, because I think that that's the drive of every soul, is how to get back to source. In order to get back to source, you have to become the perfection that you were when you left source. Well, how do you do that? Well, you learn the emotional component that human beings consider unconditional, but you also have to learn that linear component of how do you think outside the box? How do you then merge the linear process of intellect in with the emotional base of our human emotions to merge, to go back to universe? And
it is a challenging prospect within this world that we live in.
I think so.
Right.
I think so. And especially when the ETs are coming here, because I think that merging time is getting closer. And we need to, we're being forced on a human level to face our racism and our need to be better than our neighbors and so on and so forth. Because, like you said, Ramon, how are we ever going to bring in the ET aspect of things and learn and grow if we can't even do it at this very base cellular level?
Yeah, I mean,
scary.
If you listen to ufologists, you're not all of them, of course, but some of them, there's a small group that you can already see the racism going out there. Mm-hmm. Like some of them, they only like to deal with the human types and all grays are bad, or some of them, all aliens are bad,
Yep.
And some of them, all aliens, they're good.
Yeah. So, it's kind of frustrating when you see you're just expanding your ignorance, even though that's an oxymoron right there.
That's so true. It is.
But, it's one that a lot of people don't understand when I say that, just expanding your ignorance.
Yeah.
Because, what? But, I kind of want to change the subject, unless you guys got something else to say about what we've been talking about.
Oh, we'll just keep going, Ramon. Go for it.
Okay.
Yep.
So, there's, a while back, I had, consecutive, 2 or 3 nights, I was having these dreams where the first night I had a dream where I was raising a child and he was already around 10, and, I was, in a room with other people who were all human people who were raising these children, but these children were all hybrids, and there were different types of hybrid children, and my child had like these almost like glowing light ice blue eyes that the closest thing, if anybody remembers seeing that Chinese kid who can see in the dark. Anybody saw that news? Did you see that news?
Yeah.
Do you remember that, Patty?
I think so.
Yeah, there's this kid who can
so.
see his color eyes, but
Almost a neon blue.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those kind of eyes, and I'm not saying he's a hybrid. I'm just saying about my dream. And then, I woke up, and right when you're in between that stage, all I heard was, "Thank you so much. I'll be fine from here on. I'm going to," and then it got kind of cut off, and then I heard him like speaking to somebody else say, "Wait, I'm trying to tell him where I'm going," and it got kind of cut off. And then I had another dream, dealing with another baby, and then the next day another baby, but the other two babies.
You are so freaking me out right now. You are so freaking me out right now. This morning, I woke up from a dream about a baby and having a baby, and the nurse saying to me, you can go home, the baby's fine. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, I just had a baby, and it's just been a few minutes. And she's like, no, the baby's already 5 hours old. You've been sleeping. I'm like, why did I sleep? And she's like, well, you were tired. And I said, well, I want to go see the baby. And I was walking down to the nursery, and here I get down to the nursery, and I looked at her, and I said, this isn't a newborn. And she's like, no, she's already 3 weeks old. I'm like, how can she be 3 weeks old? I just gave birth to her. But all day I told my daughter-in-law, I literally felt like I gave birth this morning.
Okay.
And then you start talking about babies. I'm just like, really? Wow.
We're gonna get. I'm gonna ask a question, and I don't mean to get too personal. You don't have to answer it. Did you check yourself down there to see? Because I know a woman's, it takes like 40 days, I think, to kind of adjust back after giving birth.
Right.
Did you check to see if it was?
I did not check to see. And the reason, I'm going to say this on air. Good Lord. I'm going to say this on air. I've given birth to 2 children. I literally have been so sore today, just like I had given birth.
Wow.
It's been that sore. That's why I haven't checked, is because I've been that sore. And I was telling my daughter-in-law before I came on the show about the dream. And my ex-husband's wife was there, and she was just down, a few weeks ago to see us, to see the babies. And she was there. And so I had sent her a quick email before I got on the show tonight saying, wow, okay, I had this bizarre dream that I gave birth, and I am so sore today that I feel like I gave birth. But you were there in the delivery, but they said I zonked out for 5 hours, and by the time you and I walked to the nursery, the baby was already 3 weeks old. And I thought, what is that about? Because I've never had a dream like that.
So I've heard stories of people being, and I'm not saying that that's what's happening to us specifically, because there's no way to really prove it. Where if you get pulled out and you're in a different time where time runs different, it might be an 8-hour sleep for you, but we might have gone through, like I might have gone through 10 years with this child, for example, and you 3 weeks dealing with that. Because from what I heard with a lot of hybrids, when they don't have that human connection, especially as children, a good example would be the Japanese culture. In the Japanese culture, it's hugging is not a part of it, but they're trying to bring it in because they notice that that's a natural state of children. Children need hugs. Like children always hug me when I'm teaching, and it's what humans need. So I'm wondering if we're in these programs or something where we're getting pulled out, and maybe on a conscious base or physically, I couldn't tell you, and then you just get thrown back, maybe a few seconds after they pulled you out. So
Right.
there's no one who could notice, and no one could say there's missing time anymore.
Right. Well, and I
wow,
think you had.
that is weird.
I think you had talked about that last time I was on the show and brought it, because people have told me they've been abducted and so forth, and I don't see it in their body. And so for me, it's like, but you had made the statement that, maybe it's happening in the conscious mind and not so much in the body. And that really gave me pause, and I've been thinking about that a lot. And so this whole baby thing this morning, I mean, it was just,
yeah, but you wouldn't be
wild.
sore though.
I wouldn't be sore if it was just a conscious, a conscious experience. It was really just a bizarre thing. And then to have you start talking about babies and those dreams, it's like, wow, okay.
There was one guest we had a while back, and I can't remember who it was, that said that they had something like 40, kids, hybrid kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, it's, if we're, how often can we have these kids and not even know it?
Right.
Well, for the females, that egg, they produce an egg, at least one egg every month, right?
Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I know we're speculating here, and this makes great sci-fi kind of stuff. But, what kind of technology do we have that they can do your gestation period,
Right.
in a shorter time, or who knows, kind of.
Well, I mean, I think that whenever we look at two realities coming into play, and I'm calling the ET reality its own reality and the reality that we know here on Earth. I mean, for us to...
And then we have the dream reality.
And then we have the dream reality,
so
which kind of combines those two. Hopefully those bring those two into play. But when we as human beings think we know so much, and we really have to realize that, what we know is so limited, that we're not even close to knowing it all. And I think the ETs brought that aspect in. I don't think they have the emotional component that we do, but I think that they brought that perspective in. And, I know that just in terms of how I view things, if something major personally is going to shift for me, it's usually going to come to me in a dream state. Now, I've never had a dream state where my body felt like it went through something in addition to my dream. But I know that people have reported that for centuries, that they have experiences within the dream that follow through into the body, and that they're experiencing it on a sensory level. So, I think it's all coming together.
I had a dream and I remember this, I was a kid, I must have been between the ages of 7 and 9, and I think I had a dream I was like fighting the devil or something like that in like a karate competition, and I kicked him and he grabbed with his hands, and and when I woke up I had, my leg was in the air and I had some scratches on my foot, nothing too deep and nothing that couldn't be easily explained away, but it's still, that's the kind of, so I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
That part.
For the last couple of minutes here during this conversation, actually, ever since Ramon started talking about his dream there, I've had this really loud tone going off in my left ear. It's just ringing right now so damn loud I can't hardly hear you guys.
Wow.
Interesting stuff. So what's up with all this? I mean, I feel like we're hitting on something that's going on, and I know it's not isolated.
No one's talking about.
It's not isolated to us. It's something that's and this topic's been talked about quite a few times by quite a few different people. The whole hybrid program and or hybrid program, or crossbreeding program, whatever you want to call that, that's been going on here for maybe for the whole, time that humanity's been on the planet. That's it just and it just feels like that the times that we're in right now, that there are other cards that are being played even along those lines, like the ace in the hole sort of scenario, where okay, it's time to bring out this element, this is the pièce de résistance of our hybrid program. This is what we've been working towards type of feel about it that I get whenever I contemplate this whole setup here, that there's something going on now that has been coming for a very long time, and there's for lack of a better word, a conclusion coming to it, or the end of the chapter, or the beginning of the new chapter, or something.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Patty.
Well, I just think that's really what we're looking at, Tom, is that we're looking at the end of a chapter, moving into a new chapter. I think that the vibrations of the universe are so much higher than what is on this planet, that things are shifting, whether it's our magnetic poles that shifted, that allowed more to be taking place. But we're definitely easing into something. You never, ever, ever would have gotten me to talk about this topic, 2 days ago. It would have been completely foreign to me. And I wouldn't have been looking at all of these aha moments. People have asked me all my life, do you think you came from another planet? Because you were born knowing and born seeing, and, you never question that and so forth. And it's like, no, I'm human. Thank you. I'm here. But my doctor and I were talking about it just, 3 months ago, because I'm 57 years old, and we did a complete genetic workup, and we did a complete body workup. And she's like, your eggs are still good. Do you want to harvest some, and just in case you decide you want another child? And I just looked at her and burst out laughing, and I'm like, why on earth would I want another child at this age? And she's like, but you're 57 years old. You're not even close to menopause. Nothing's showing even close to menopause, and your eggs are still good. That's outstanding. Wow. And then I go into this dream. So
And that's why they're still good.
And that's why they're still good. Maybe they were utilized, but I just remembered going down the nursery going, wait a minute, this is a 3-week-old baby. And then it was over. And,
was it a boy or a girl?
It was a little girl. And I didn't have a name for it. It was like totally unplanned. It was like, whoa, wait a minute, I'm pregnant, wait a minute. And then, here's this baby, but I'm knocked out for 5 hours, and then the nurse is like, well, you can go. I'm like, well, what do you mean I can go? I just gave birth. Aren't I supposed to stay here for a few days? She's like, no, you're fine. You can go. I'm like, well, I want to go see the baby. I haven't even seen the baby yet. And so I got down to the nursery and so forth, and, it was 7:30 in the morning, and my phone started ringing, which is unheard of. And I really thought it was my daughter-in-law telling me that she had gone into labor. And it wasn't. It was a crisis phone call that I had to deal with for the office. But it was just this funky space. And when you started talking about it, and, I have been mulling over just more the violence that's taking place around the earth, and how people aren't getting it in terms of the personal responsibility and what we need to do. And all of that seems to be bringing in, as Tom said, another chapter.
Right. Yeah, here's another coincidence all tied in with the child thing is, you guys are both familiar with Star Trek, The Next Generation, right? So I've been rewatching this series. Elizabeth and I have been watching it. We started at season 1 here a couple of weeks ago. And last night we watched an episode called The Child, where this entity, enters Deanna Troi, and it's an accelerated pregnancy where she goes through a pregnancy in a matter of a day. And she gives birth to this child, and he grows from birth to like 12 years old in 2 days. And before he leaves the ship because he's creating a problem there, and he's not there to create a problem energetically. Anyways, Another little synchronicity tying into this whole thing.
Yep, and I actually watched that a couple of months ago. It was airing, and I watched that because it was one of my favorite episodes. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's you know, that's one thing I loved about Star Trek, and I heard somebody speakers saying they were doing they were watching Deep Space Nine, and it was terrible, and I was like, what? You're not even paying attention. But anyway, there's one thing I loved about Star Trek, because they would pull things out that would really, like, sometimes would fly right over your head, because it was such an advanced concept that when you look at it years later, you're like, whoa, they were really talking about that.
Yeah.
That's why I love sci-fi. But going back to this whole program thing, you know, I've heard other speakers say that some of the things they were trying to breed out of the human species was that when the rage, you know, every human person, I don't care who you are, can go into a rage where they see red and can be, you know, the most vicious, strongest, you know, animal on the planet at that moment when they're going through that rage. And every single one of us has that. Do you feel that rage is something that is useful, or something that should be taken out, if it is true that they're breeding that out of the hybrids?
Well, I think duality has to exist. I think that, you know, and I'm not quite sure I buy into them breeding it out, because, you know, I think that from an intellectual standpoint, the understanding that duality has to exist, maybe not at the level that that we've seen throughout the centuries. But I don't, you know, even when we look at the most violent times in our histories, no matter what culture it is, the bottom line is we're still as vicious. We really are still as vicious, as much as we think that we've been humanized, or that we've been, you know, we've taken strides in peaceful acceptance and so forth. Our animal instinct is still, I think, as strong as ever. And so I would say that it's not so much about breeding it out. I think the kindness and the giving needs to be breeded in.
Yeah, you definitely got a good point there. I mean,
yeah,
duality. Materiality does not exist without duality. It's all
right.
It's all based on duality. It's, you know, solid or not.
Yeah, but if you look at it, so you're telling this from a human point of view, but I think if you look at it from their point of view, they don't have emotions.
No, but they need emotions. And I think that that's where the balance is coming in, Ramon, from my perspective. And just, you know, I'm not an expert in the subject, but it's what I felt all of my life, is that the ETs need emotion as much as we need their linear understanding. And once those two become in balance, still dual, you know, still duality, but once those two pieces come into balance within a human body, then you can move to ascension. And I don't think you can move to ascension until those two pieces are in perfect harmony with each other, still showing the duality of purpose, but in balance with each other. And right now we're woefully out of balance.
Yeah. As a whole, I agree 100%. You know, I've been watching this shift, though, even more significantly just in the last few years. I've been watching it shift more towards balance, you know, within these fields, within this genre of research and researchers, authors, lecturers, you know, even, you know, the full spectrum of the woo-woo world that's out there on the world stage right now is, you know, and I definitely don't agree with the methodology and the practices of so many of them out there, but they're, getting people to ask the questions and getting people to start to look inside and getting people to really start to address these issues in a much more open manner than I think has ever happened on the planet. So, you know, from that perspective and on that level, I think I'm very optimistic about the shift that's going on right now on the planet in our own consciousness.
I think it's really important for people to continue that growth and that understanding and realize it's not one way. You know, people are really surprised to find out that I do jujitsu with my kids. And even the jujitsu community says, wait a minute, you know, you're a hippie, you're a tree lover. Why are you into jujitsu? Why are you, you know, choking out, pinning this guy to the mat? And it's like, well, because I believe in the duality of purpose, and I have no problem learning defensive characteristics. I don't think it's violent unless I start going and jumping people and choking guys out. It's okay. And they kind of sit back and they go, wow, didn't expect that from you. And it's like, wait a minute, you got to have balance here. You've got to have some balance. And how I choose to use my training is what's important. Not the fact that I've gotten the training, but how I choose to use it. So exactly. Can I be spiritual and still be jujitsu? Sure.
Yeah. No, I agree. That's one part of the quote unquote hippie or new age movement that I completely disagree. That a lot of people say, oh, you don't have to learn self-defense if you're vibrationally, and I'm like, no, I think you should, because I mean the whole thing. I mean, when you look at the Shaolin monks and look how advanced they are and the kind of things they can do with their bodies, and they always, the number one thing, you know, that they always say is you fight without anger.
That's
and
right.
You only fight if you have to. And they're so good at avoiding it that, you know, most of the time they don't fight.
That's right.
Unless, but you look how old they get and how good, and, you know, guy's 97 and he's still, you know, doing things that I can't even do.
Yep. I mean, you brought in my heroes again. So, you know, you're just hitting all the high points.
I'm just reading your mind today.
You're just reading my mind today. But it's absolutely true. And, you know, when I was on tour, you know, a couple of months ago, every flight I had to fly back into Atlanta and then, you know, be in the airport for 2 hours and fly back out. And I was doing this for 6 weeks, and I got assaulted again at the airport. And it was, you know, I saw a guy in P.F. Chang's who was actually reading my book, and I thought, oh, this is really cool. And I approached him because I was so excited. And within 2 minutes, I realized his obsessor was me. It wasn't reading my book. It was me. And so he assaulted me, and, you know, I got a cop's attention, and he saw the whole thing. But I managed to elbow the guy. And what I didn't like was that I wasn't feeling aggressive, but I wasn't feeling in control either. I mean, I knew I was safe because I was in a public place. I knew he really couldn't do that much to me in a public place, and I managed to elbow him and give him a bloody nose. But even in the totality of that, I wasn't in control, and I didn't like that feeling. And what I realized was I wasn't scared and I wasn't aggressive, but I wasn't in control of what was taking place. And since the family is totally involved in jiu-jitsu, I thought, okay, I'm 30 years older than any person in this group, but hey, I'll go for it. And it wasn't to use it as a weapon, but to use it if I got in a similar situation in the future. If I needed to use it, I would have the technique there to use it. And that's what I love about the Shaolin monks, is that, like you said, they're there to use it. And I think that goes across the board for anything that we learn, especially if it's a defensive mechanism, to not use it as the aggressor. And it's, again, learning the personal responsibility to not use it as the aggressor.
Good. Well said. Well said.
Yeah.
Well, we've actually burned the whole hour up here already, Ramon. So yeah, I know that happens when we get into these amazing conversations. The time just flies by. And I promise, guys out there listening, that we will get into some of the work that Patti's actually doing out there on the world stage, some of the cellular healing, and we'll talk about her book a little bit here in the next hour. So, Patti, where can they find all your material at?
They can go to patticonklin.com, and that's PattiConklin.com. And they can get the books off of the God Within and CDs and so forth off of Amazon or the website. But the website will have, I'll be out in Seattle in February and New York in March and I think Istanbul in March. And so all sorts of different places that I'll be at.
Japan?
So no Japan at this, I'll work on it for the fall. But so they can find out all sorts of stuff on the website.
Fantastic.
Well, you can always crash here, just in case.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, guys. We're going to take ourselves a little break, and we're going to be coming back in the members section on the website. For all of you out there listening on those other media outlets, you need to pop over to www.thehundredthmonkeyradio.com and check out all the stuff that we've got over there. We've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of shows over there for you guys to check out. Anyways, we'll be back in a few minutes. Condemnation without investigation is the height of ignorance.
The love you deny is the pain you carry.
Freedom's calling, I feel the fire that's deep inside us. Everybody wants change, but tell me who will guide us. To the leaders that pass away, put up your lighters. It's a beautiful struggle, but it cannot divide us. We're the ones that we've always been waiting for. See yourself in the mirror and open up the door. Walk through it and feel the love throughout your pores. Be the light, life's purpose is to feel joy. Metaphysical, lyrical, standing up for truth. The only one to make change is walking in your shoes. Be the example, don't complain about the news. Making music and serving the world with the loo. Now you can be the same, or you can be the change. Find strength from inside, break through the chains. No one to blame, nothing to prove. You create your reality, it's up to you. Be the change
that you wanna see in the world. Like Gandhi live for peace,
aspire to be.
Someone who fights for the beliefs like Martin Luther King.
Aspire to be
that love,
that light,
like Christ,
life
for the moment in need.
And if you believe
in Jehovah, Allah, Buddha,
Krishna,
it's love to me.
My soul yearns for peace in a world that's flooded with war. History's littered with body scar, trying to settle the score and maintain an archaic platform of power and greed. People fight for land out of survival and need. So I'm killing my television and I'm planting a seed to fill my head with knowledge that I'm seeing receive. Due to the media propaganda, killing my creed. Or what don't kill me make me stronger, feeling straight when I bleed. Fighting for interest and forwards attached to feet. They try to sell you anything in this world, nothing for free. Land, air, fire, and water, they keep up in the ante while the anti-proletariats hold the powers that be. But we keep fighting, surviving and thriving, recycling and rhyming. We constantly inclining, we see through the lying and prying. They casually keep trying to keep you from asking the why.
Be the change that you wanna see in the world. Like Gandhi live for peace,
aspire to be.
Someone who fights for the beliefs like Martin Luther King.
Aspire to be
that love,
that light,
like Christ,
life
for the moment in need.
And if you believe
in Jehovah, Allah, Buddha,
Krishna,
it's love to me.
We find solutions, different possibilities, creating organizations like Aspire to Be, inspiring young minds to see, building life skills, nurturing creativity, fulfilling the youth's basic needs, listening actively, teaching the tools to succeed, positive role models, we plant the seed, the roots drink the water which feed the trees, someone help me, giving back is my responsibility.
Be the change that you wanna see in the world. Like Gandhi live for peace,
aspire to be.
Someone who fights for the beliefs like